guys, how you guys doing? How was Thanksgiving at your hand? It was fabulous at my end. My gosh, it was like a day to do all the crazy work that I have not done in for a long time. Today, I have an amazing person with me. It is just so awesome. But before we get there, you guys know what's up. You know what's up, folks. We got to do house cleaning. So where are we? This is Let's Talk Plant Medicine, Cannabis, Psychedelics, and Pharmaceutics. And what the heck is this? I'm Dr. Lola, also known as Dr. O. I'm the founder of WCI Health, your alternative health and wellness hub. Will help you level up on your wellness journey using the powers of plant medicine like cannabis, psychedelics, and using education. Really, the focus is education as the tools. That's what we do. So that's what's going on. And what other house cleaning do we have today? Yeah, you guys know what that is. This show is for educational purpose and should not be taken as medical advice. Consult with your doctor for all your medical needs. Do not stop or start any medicine without talking to your doctor. Having said that, why are we here? How are we even able to be here? We are here because of people like you. This show is sponsored by WCI Health. They are your alternative health and wellness hub. At WCI Health, like I said earlier, we help you level up on your wellness journey. They are the makers of glows. And when you think of glows, what comes to your mind? That is the beauty from the within. Beauty from within is about all that you love. Your pets, yourself, they got beauty products. They have CBD infused products. It's all kind of cool stuff. And they are also the publisher of this beautiful book. If you haven't got yours yet, you know, it's lying off the shelf. Is this season for giving? I'm telling you, and I'm going to be talking to Samuel as well about this book today. The beautiful thing we have been hearing about this tiny book is the fact that it's saving life. I was in Clubhouse room the other day, and a lady came and said, Doctor, oh, your book is literally a lifesaver. It's basic, straight to the point, no medical jargons in here. You need something for sleep. You don't know what topping you need. This is where you're going to find it. Anyway, go to where do you get it? WCI-health.com, or you slide in my DM, WCI Health 19. Or if you are out of the country, where else can you get it? You can also get it on Amazon. We have it in Kindle version and also in paperback. So that's what's up with that. And I want to also say thank you to you for every one of you that is a member of Health Equals Wealth. You are indirectly supporting this show. And thank you so much. And for those of you that are still sitting on the sideline, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Come join us. We need you to keep this show going. It's all about education. This plant has been demonized for so long. Lies upon lies have been spread about cannabis, psychedelics. So people like Samuel and myself, we are coming here to take away all those lies and give you the real deal. Why do I do what I do? I'm a clinical pharmacist by trade. Most of you know that already, in case you don't know. And plant medicine queen. That is, you guys gave me that title, not me. I was born in West Africa where we use plant medicine as our first line of therapy. So I'm bringing that knowledge as well as my clinical background to help you level up on your wellness journey, saving money on your healthcare costs, and to avoid adverse reaction. I mean, the cost of healthcare is literally insane. But that is why we have to go back to herbal medicine. I used plant medicine growing up. I used mango leaves, trees for malaria. So I know what I'm talking about here. Enough of that. For those of you that are yet to join our club also, Cannabis Psychedelic Club or African Cannadelic Club on Clubhouse on Saturday, 12 noon Eastern Time, and on Sunday, 12 noon Eastern Time. We want you to join our village. Come on board. slide in DM, wci-health.com. That's where you're going to have all the good stuff. That is enough of us. Now, let's go to this great person. You know what we have here with us today? Samuel Richards. Samuel is the executive director of Arizona Dispensary Association. This man knows his way all around the state capitol. This is a great human when you're looking for your way around the politics of not just cannabis, you know, state politics, federal politics, and I am a political junkie myself. I love to talk politics. Samuel is the person you want to go to. He's doing great work in Arizona, and we're going to be hearing a whole lot from him today. Samuel, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, it's great to be here, Dr. O. Thank you for the time.
Awesome. Now, talk to me, Samuel. How did you even find yourself as the executive director of our Arizona Dispensary Association? I know they just have our legalization and everything. I want to know about that. Talk to me about your journey through cannabis and your background generally.
Yeah, so my parents like to remind me that when I was a little kid and there was a question about what do you want to do when you grow up, I said, I just want to get paid to talk to people. And it turns out that job looks a lot like being a lobbyist. So that's what I went into. So I've been a policy advocate and a government relations professional for a while now, and mostly on social issues, things like criminal justice reform, environmental justice, immigration rights, and more. And through that work, particularly around criminal justice reform, really got interested around cannabis policy, because obviously the intersectionality with the criminal justice system and cannabis. And my wife and I had our second child a few years ago. He's 2.5 now. And in the midst of my own paternity leave for that, I had kind of had the opportunity to come on board with the team that was launching Proposition 207, which is the sign here behind me for folks checking us out on YouTube, which was the legalization initiative that brought the adult use marketplace here to Arizona. So I've been on board here with the association for about 2.5 years now, and I've loved every minute. The cannabis community is just a wonderful place. It's like a big family. And because, you know, when you get into cannabis, when you get into plant medicines, things just get a little bit clearer, you get a little bit more casual, all at the same time where we're building, you know, a $2 billion industry here in the state of Arizona alone. As a part of, you know, $150 billion industry nationwide. So we have quite a bit of work to do to build towards that potential, but really excited to be here and chat with you a little bit more about what we do.
Awesome. That is cool. I love Arizona. I was there a couple of years ago, I think 2009, when I was trying to go to farm school. I wanted to come to school over there, so I came down for interview. Glendale, one of the schools in Glendale. It's a beautiful city. Okay, talk to me, Sammy, about what does it take to be able to run an organization like ADA? How does your day-to-day activity, how does it look?
Yeah, so we have what some of your listeners might know of as a limited license market. So we have about 170 roughly licenses that are a part of our system. But underneath that, we have hundreds and hundreds of independently owned and operated businesses that might be brands or cultivations, or all a variety of different things. So we're in some markets, those are all licensed separately. We have a vertical license system, but the owner of that license can lease the ability to operate to any number of different individuals underneath that. So our membership includes both those licensed owners as well as the independently operating brands that operate within them. And of the 125 licenses that are up and operating currently, 110 of them are our members. So we represent a wide swath of the landscape here in the ecosystem. And really our focus is on 3 broad topics. The first being legislative advocacy, making sure that the statutes in the Arizona state law are as friendly as possible to both consumers and industry in terms of cannabis. But then also, once you have those statutes, you have to make sure that the rules and regulations are also, operating in a way that makes sense for both consumers and industry. So that second leg of our stool really focuses on regulatory compliance. So a lot of our work is making sure that we're in constant communication with our partners at the Department of Health Services, where we're licensed, but also the Department of Revenue, the Division of Weights and Measures, and any number of different county and cities that have to do with the day-to-day operations of cannabis. And then that third leg is really packaging and repositioning our role in the broader society. As you mentioned in your intro, one side effect of being under prohibition for nearly a century here in America is that we have a lot of work to do to educate the broader public that cannabis is not only not dangerous, but the opposite is true. That it can be helpful in a variety of different therapeutic and recreational pursuits, and kind of re-educating the public on that is a big role that we're engaged in here at the association, really to professionalize and normalize that, right? We just also, to kind of reference your opening there, we just are coming off of the Thanksgiving holiday, where it probably wasn't uncommon for you or me or any number of your listeners to see folks consume significant amounts of alcohol, throughout that experience, but might look at you a little bit sideways if you pulled out a J and lit up in the backyard after Thanksgiving, right? So we still have that social stigma that we have to deal with in cannabis in a way that is largely inappropriate, but 100% objectively inaccurate as well. Cannabis is safe. It's beneficial in a variety of ways, and that's our job at the association, to help communicate that to the public.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. It's a lot that I have in that little segment right there. First of all, I want to say what you guys are doing in Arizona is really, really cool, because you have folks that have the licenses. Then you don't have an excuse. Even if you don't have a license, you can still operate. That is kind of like giving opportunity to other folks that might not have that limited license. Am I getting it right?
Yes. Yeah. And you still are kind of, you're working in partnership with that license owner, but I'll just give you kind of a hypothetical example. If you find significant success in a market like Oklahoma or Colorado or even California, you can approach one of the license owners in Arizona and say, I want to bring my brand here. I want to bring my cultivation practices here. I want to bring my new tincture or my topical or my vape cartridge to Arizona. And you can do that in partnership with one of these license owners. So just because we're a limited license market doesn't mean that our doors are closed to new businesses or to new product expressions. And Arizona is a very, very great place to be in the cannabis business.
That is awesome. The second thing that I'm going to come up with from that last discussion was the issue of the fact about education, health, and wellness. There, talk to me a little bit more details. First of all, were you ever part of, there are a lot of folks that have to use cannabis as a medicine. That was part of the reason why they came into the space. Well, some other folks didn't need to use it as a medicine. My husband was one of them. He just started using for a very long time when he was really early 20s, and he just loved using it. It helps him to calm down. It helps him with a lot of things. He's one member of the household that hardly gets sick. So talk to me, talk about the health and wellness of this plan, because it's like you said, it's years and years and years of lies that has been spread. It's going to take us a while to debunk all these lies.
Absolutely. And I think maybe one thing that I'll do to answer your question is zoom all the way out. I think one of the quotes that has always stuck with me is the idea that food is medicine, right? That quote that says, "Let food be thy medicine." Cannabis is medicine, but I also think that maybe we don't consider that more things are medicine and medicinal than we might first acknowledge. And I think the other thing that I would encourage folks to consider is that just because you don't need a prescription for it anymore doesn't mean that it's not medicinal. There used to be a time where you couldn't access things like aspirin or ibuprofen without talking to someone like you, right? Without talking to a pharmacist, without talking to a doctor. And I think that what we've done as a society is agree that there are not significant harms for that type of medicine being allowed for over-the-counter purchase. And what we're doing now as a society as we approach the normalization of cannabis is that something that previously required a doctor's note, right, and a prescription and a certification from a medical professional, we're now coming to a place where we agree as a society that people can experience cannabis and the medicinal and therapeutic benefits of either inhaling or otherwise ingesting cannabis, and still allow that medicinal benefit without kind of the cover of a prescription. So just because it is in an adult use market or available over the counter does not mean that it ceases to have medicinal or therapeutic benefits. And that's something that I really make sure that folks understand, right? It's no different than aspirin or ibuprofen. Just because you don't need a prescription doesn't mean that it's not medicine.
That is awesome. You did it way better than I could have done it there, Samuel. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is called nutraceutical. Our food, nutrients, serving as medicine, just like we have pharmaceuticals. Nutraceutical basically mean using our food as a nutrient. And the other thing I'm gonna throw in there to with what you just said is the fact that a lot of our conventional medicine were originally derived from these herbs. Cannabis, you have a seed, you put it in the soil, it grows, it's a plant.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about it is that Mother Nature was so kind to us to add all this extra cannabinoid in there for our own wellness. So it is a plant, it is food. It's not different from our spinach. And I also tell people, we have folks that are on Coumadin, warfarin, and we tell them don't take green veggies. Does that mean green veggies is bad for you? No, it's just that the green have vitamin K in it. And when you have a Coumadin that's already gonna thin your blood, and you also take an agent that is gonna thin your blood more because of the vitamin K, you start having issue with bleeding. We don't want you bleeding internally. That's why we say don't eat greens. It's not like your broccoli or kale or or your cannabis is bad for you. Even the power that be, they need education as well. And it's people like you and I that are gonna have to do that work. And talk, awesome. Talk to me. That brings me to issue of legalization. Legalization in Arizona, how has that impacted the economy of the state?
Oh, incredibly. So I mentioned that we're well on our way to being a $2 billion industry. We'll probably have $1.5 billion in top line sales when all the numbers get crunched early next year for the calendar year that we're in now. But I'll tell you in just, kind of real numbers as well, it's not just the owners of these licenses that are, making significant money or anything like that. It's the people of Arizona, because there's an excise tax of 16% on cannabis that was a part of the initiative. And that money has already yielded about $150 million in tax revenue, sending back to the people of Arizona. And that number will probably eclipse $200 million when all is said and done with this year as well. So those dollars go to things like behavioral health services across the state, infrastructure like new roads and bridges in the far reaches of our state. We're the 6th largest state by landmass in the country. So we have, while Phoenix is a really big kind of metropolitan area, we're actually the 5th largest city in the country. Some people don't realize that, right? They know about New York, they know about Chicago, they know about LA, and then there's Houston, obviously the big.
That's my hometown.
But then it's Phoenix, right? So we're a bigger city than Philly. We're a bigger city than San Diego. Like a lot of people forget that, right? But in addition to being a big city, the state itself is a really, really big state. So we have really rural parts of Arizona. So that infrastructure resource is really incredible. About 5 or 6 years ago, our state legislature made a decision to zero out funding to community colleges. And that's one of the things that we did with Prop 207 is we made a focused choice to reinvest into a community college system here, because what better source of money to encourage higher education?
That is so I mean, that's special. That is just so special. And the other thing I'm gonna ask you, I know when I was going through your bio, I said, okay, it's not just a political junkie like me, it's also a technology guru and all that. Talk to me, when looking at the future, what role do you think technology is gonna play in this cannabis space?
Yeah, I think
especially when we're talking about trends and all, like I was talking to one of my guests the other day, they have Tetragram, they have this new app that is going to be able to kind of collect data, because part of the code word for prohibition is, we don't have enough data. We don't have enough clinical trial. No, our great-grandfather has been using this plant. Our great-grandmas, they've been using this plant for generations. Mm-hmm. So indigenous folks, they know how to use this plant. But if it's data that they want, we, the people, need to start gathering the data. And how do we gather those data? Part of the way we can gather those data are technology. So talk to me, what do you think is gonna be, like I was saying, Tetragram, you're gonna be able to, clients are gonna be able to track what they are using. Yeah. And using those data, we can begin to make decisions.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think technology has always been a pervasive part of society, right? Like we our life has changed as technology has increased. And I think the other thing that's important to talk about here is, so is cannabis, right? Mm-hmm. Cannabis is not new. As you mentioned, indigenous peoples and really just humans in general have been using cannabis in a variety of different forms for at least 30,000 years. The longest ago documented source was a fossilized hemp woven fabric that was discovered a few years ago that was dated back to about 30,000 years prior to today, right? So we know that cannabis has been inextricably linked to the development and the kind of the growth of human society. So that's a roundabout way of answering your question and saying that I can't imagine a world with increasing technology and artificial intelligence and the metaverse, as our buddy Mark Zuckerberg talks about, that would not include cannabis as a part of that. And I think that you're seeing that, right? Cannabis and other plant medicines have been inextricably linked with human society, and I don't think that will ever change.
Yeah, that is great, and that brings me to my next question. If part of what technology is kind of like a two-edged sword at the same time, but at the same time, we are a great population. The world is growing. We all are not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to have enough grown plants that everybody is going to need. We're going to need the ingenuity of technology to be able to help us develop medicine for people, process this hemp product. Because when we're talking about cannabis, we're not just talking about cannabis, we're also talking about hemp. And all this, and that one is like an animal on itself, the potential that hemp brings to the table. We're not even talking about that. But at the same time, when you look at how we are developing this new genetics, are we not at risk of losing those cannabis landrace, like, all those cultivars, those, OGs, the original strains that our forefather actually used? Are we not at risk of losing that? And what do you think we can do to preserve this really rare species for the next generation? It's kind of
Yeah,
like a history and artifact.
right. And I think that that's always a challenge. No matter what you are talking about, progress will always have the unfortunate side effect that some of the source material in whatever we're talking about. In this case, cannabis always gets lost by the wayside. But I think one proverb that I try to hold center as much as possible is that history will always favor the lion until the lamb is given voice, right? So I think that what that means to me in this context is that it's incumbent on folks like you and I to continue to talk about, those cultivars that came from the original regions where cannabis was first cultivated, in the places that are far from the Americas, right? And that we may have forgotten about from a historical context, but are still extremely important in terms of cannabis cultivation, right? We wouldn't have any number of the things that we might enjoy now on the shelves of dispensaries without Afghani cultivars or Durban poisons or things that we might think are just kind of secondhand now, but that's the root, right? That's the source code for runts or whatever the new hot cultivar is this year. I think maybe root beer. I've seen a lot of kind of spins on root beer type cultivars, so we'll see what comes out of there. But I think that one thing that I also try to keep center as well in thinking about this is the fact that cannabis isn't new, right? We've had this plant around for quite a while. The careful cultivation of the plant isn't new. The formulation of the plant into many different varieties of expression, whether it's inhalables, ingestibles, or topicals, right? They're all there. They've all been around for a long time. The commerce of the plant is not new, right? People have been buying and selling cannabis for quite a long time. The only thing that is new is that the government wants a piece of the action. So when you can remember that, when you can keep that at the center of this work, that really at the root of everything we do, it's about education, right? And educating these regulators who want to fit us into, an alcohol regulation box or fit us into, a food or pharmaceutical box. They don't necessarily understand the pervasive nature of cannabis. Wherever you look in society, cannabis is there. It used to be a part of animal feed, right? People would grow hemp as a fibrous part of pig and cattle feed. Major car manufacturers use in the development of their frames of the vehicles, of the chassis, right? It's been made into incredibly strong construction materials, right? And the list goes on and on and on. It hasn't always been known as a psychoactive compound primarily, right? So I think getting back to that and talking about it more as not something that's special and really is something that's boring, I think really is the goal, right? I want cannabis to be as boring as apples. Another way to think about it as well is grapes, right? Grapes are something that I always have in my fridge. I have 2 young kids. It's a great snack. You can have them by themselves.
Easier for them to grab.
Yeah, you dip them in a little bit of yogurt. You do whatever you want, right? Grapes are always around. But grapes grown in the right conditions and processed in the right ways also make a delicious beverage that makes an evening a little bit more enjoyable, right? But at the root of wine is still that grape, right? So at the root of psychoactive cannabis is still that hemp plant. It's the same plant, it's just cultivated a little bit differently, and a little bit more carefully, right? So I think wine and grapes are a really good metaphor and really good analogy to kind of think through how all that works.
I love that analogy. And the other thing I always kind of tell folks is that at the end of the day, even the psychoactive part of it, THC, it is medicine. It's not the boogeyman, the bad guys. No, this is a medicine. When you talk about people that use it in different ways, sativas, even conventional medicine, these are really, it has its properties. It's okay. It has a potential to short-term memory loss. I feel like even the short-term memory loss, we can harness that to help some of our folks. Look at our military folks that are coming back from war with PTSD, with all this stress. That little part of the pathways of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is inability of folks to forget this trauma. So if there is an agent out there that can help people to forget, we can harness that. And when we are talking about our military men and women, we definitely cannot forget Senator McCain. Like I said, I am a political junkie. He's such an amazing human, a great American that came out of Arizona there. So those are people that have really sacrificed for our country so that we can have this freedom. And so we need to start looking out for these folks. And part of the way we can look out for them is beginning to tell the power that be to fall back. They need to freaking fall back. And let plants like cannabis, like psychedelics, psilocybin, they have not killed anybody. Have you seen how many people? Over 130 folks die every day from opioid overdose. And this is from the CDC themselves, not Dr. O or Samuel,
Right. And I think maybe one thing that I would add there is, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, as you say here, right? But I think that when we're talking about plant medicine, it's important to remember that in a way, that's really redundant, right? Plants are medicine, and most of our medicine comes from plants. And most of the things that we know now, even if they're synthesized, have their roots as plants, right? That's a nice little pun there, right? But the even the idea of aspirin, right? Indigenous peoples chewed on the bark of the willow tree, and that is where that idea came from, where that experience came from. And what happened is this little outfit decided to synthesize the active ingredient of the willow bark and filed the first patent for aspirin, right? So that's where that thing came from. Beer, alcohol, right? It's grain. Grain is a plant. You have all of these things that really have their root in plants. And even something like as dangerous as fentanyl and other synthesized opioids really have their root in the poppy plant, right? So, far enough back is the root of it all is a plant, no matter what we're talking about. And I think one of the things that we benefit from, whether we're talking about cannabis or psilocybin or some other psychoactive and psychotropic plant medicines, we're much closer to the quote unquote real thing than some of these other psychotropic ingredients, right? So it's easier for us to talk about the health benefits in kind of the silo because we haven't gotten to that fully synthesized way yet, and really kind of all the way down to the molecule instead of these kind of symphonic expressions of full spectrum oil and whatnot, right? When the pharmaceutical companies start to get their hands on these patents and we're pulling out THCO or CBD in pure form or different things like that, I think that folks like you and I who are used to either inhalation or ingestion of full spectrum oil from a full plant might see the effects happen a little bit different as we continue to kind of remove ourselves from that true source, which is the plant.
Absolutely. And when we talk about plants that are medicine, where else, especially when it comes to mental health and all that, so I know we've digressed a little bit where we're going to come back. Where else can we say part of the kings and queens of this plant other than the desert in Arizona? We have the cactus right there, San Pedro, mescaline and all these plants are right there in the desert of Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, the author, who, thanks to some of the work of Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, which I'm sure you and some of your viewers have seen on Vice or whatever network it's on, he did a great episode on 5-MeO-DMT, the synthesized version of DMT. Well, the frog, the toad, that was the source of that synthesized version of DMT, is naturally found. Its natural habitat is here in southern Arizona, outside of the deserts of Tucson. And the creation of that synthesized 5-MeO-DMT was really meant to save the natural population of those toads. And I think that those stories come in spades here in Arizona, right? We're, in a lot of ways, the indigenous home to a lot of psychotropic, naturally occurring active ingredients, right? Whether it's the peyote of the Odom people, or you have the toads of other indigenous peoples, and a variety of other aspects as well. In fact, the teachings of Don Juan from Castaneda, most of that took place in the deserts of Arizona. So I think that, we really are kind of a spiritual home, a spiritual center for a lot of plant medicines. So in many, many ways, we are also the home of the next iteration, the next generation of cannabis professionals. So
awesome.
Really appreciate the time to talk about that and the opportunity to address you and your listeners.
Definitely. And we will be bringing you back to talk about psychedelics, because that is my specialty. I focus on cannabis, but at the same time, I also focus on psychedelics too. Now let's go back to cannabis. We are talking cannabis. So talk to me about cannabis when it comes to, see, part of the stress that folks are going through is the banking with cannabis businesses, entrepreneur, the moms and pops that depends on these little businesses to take care of their children. They cannot even get loans. They cannot, the stigma, then the restriction on banking. Talk to me about that. How, especially you as somebody that's so close to these lawmakers, what is going on out there? And talk to me. What is going on out there?
Yeah, well, so part of the issue with the federal illegality, right? So we are one of about 15 states that have an adult use marketplace right now, and about 35 states have some form of legalized cannabis, whether it's a medical market or it's been decriminalized, but there's no commercial market for cannabis. One of those things, right? So a large majority of the individual states across the country have legalized cannabis, but the federal government has not. And what that means in a practical way is that you cannot cross state lines with either product or money in a legal or compliant way. And when you can't cross the state lines with money, that means a lot of the kind of the ease of transfer that you and I might be used to. I can use my, American Express or my Visa card. If I go on a trip across country, I can use it wherever I am because it's kind of digital currency, right? Well, cannabis funds, cannabis revenue, cannabis income can't be used in the same way, because if that money crosses state lines, it immediately gets triggered as a money laundering case, and the Department of Justice and the FBI get real interested in some of those activities, right? So what the Safe Banking Act would do while we wait for Congress to actually fully legalize cannabis, it would really take a large step in decriminalizing the already legal business of the cannabis, the multi-billion-dollar industry across the country. And you see folks actually just yesterday, there was a large press conference in the Oakland area of a variety of number of dispensaries that have been burgled and actively and aggressively robbed because most of the business that we have to conduct right now is in cash. So, we have businesses that are, highly compliant and fully, regulated by their local and state jurisdictions, but they are unable to make tax payments to the federal government because they may have gotten robbed because the entire business is done in cash. So what this Safe Banking Act will do is really take a big step into making sure that some of those ease of financial transactions that other businesses have available to them are also available to cannabis businesses.
Thank you so much for that. That brings me to my next question. When you talk about decrim, and this is the issue of Black, indigenous people of color. We all know the lies was really propagated and the prisons were really made money for the government at the back of the Black, indigenous people of color, the minority people. And now, even without having this access to banking, first of all, folks are not really able to get licenses. Even if you get the license, how do you get the money to take your business to the next level as a minority? What is your organization doing to help minority community, or especially as a lobbyist to these state houses? What are you doing to make sure this injustice that we have seen for generations doesn't carry on to the next generation?
Yeah, so a lot of that work is happening at the federal government because that's really where the bottleneck is. So we're doing what we can across state houses, and I'll mention that our Attorney General here in the state of Arizona, Mark Brnovich, has historically been extremely supportive of the provisions of the Safe Banking Act. And we're grateful for his advocacy and support. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter really how much any state level leaders want to encourage the safe banking legislation to move forward. The decision is really only up to the 535 individuals that make up the Congress in Washington. So the 100 senators and the 435 members of the House of Representatives there really have that decision. So, in coalition with a variety number of people, whether it's Amber and the group at the Minority Cannabis Business Association, the groups at the U.S. Council of Cannabis, the National Cannabis Roundtable, all those types of groups are ones that we're heavily engaged in. I'm personally very involved with a group called Attach, which is the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp. And we also, as an association, are represented federally by an amazing woman named Safira Galoob, who is also the individual who runs the National Cannabis Roundtable. So we have quite a bit of focus and energy that we're sending to Washington to make sure that the lawmakers there are fully comprehending that when they are keeping safe banking from passing, they're keeping communities of color from accessing the capital necessary to operationalize and run an organization that can function and thrive in a regulated cannabis ecosystem.
Yeah, that's awesome. Finally, I'm gonna ask you, first of all, it's two parts of a question. The first part is that Arizona is a tourist, it's very close to Vegas, it's close to California itself. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to live and for a visitor to come. How are you guys capitalizing on that, being a tourist state, as it relates to cannabis, as in cannabis tourism? Are you guys looking into that at all?
Definitely. I mean, Arizona is absolutely one of the places in the country that benefits quite a bit from tourism. We have one of those opposite seasons, right? So right now, when everyone is experiencing extreme winter weather, our highs are somewhere in the mid 70s. So it's a very, very popular place to come if you're in the Midwest or other places that experience extreme cold. And of course, this was all pre-pandemic, right? But prior to COVID, Arizona would routinely get between 40 and 45 million visitors every year. And that could be for a variety of things, whether they're just coming to Arizona to golf, for folks who are escaping the cold winter weather to spend 6 months here in Arizona, or we're a very heavily trafficked state for sports. So we are a regular hoster of the Super Bowl, of the NCAA Final Four tournament, one of the best parties on the PGA golf tour is called the Phoenix Open, and that routinely for a golf tournament gets somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 to 50,000 people coming out just for that, right? So there's quite a bit of activity in that realm, and now that we're in an adult use marketplace, it's incumbent on the cannabis community here to let folks know when they get off the airport at Phoenix Sky Harbor or Tucson International, to let them know that their first stop after they get their rental car should be their dispensary. And that's the work that we're engaging in here. You know, a lot of folks know us as the Grand Canyon State. I really want to make sure that we transition into that to be known as the Grand Cannabis State.
Awesome.
We're working on starting next year.
That's awesome. So finally, what other services, what other benefit does your member get from, because everybody, all the dispensary out there definitely needs to be a member of ADA. What other benefit does your member get?
Absolutely, they're very typical to any other trade association for other industries, and they really align with those three legs of the stool that I talked about earlier, right? So that legislative and political action is one big piece of it. So our members are not only beneficiaries of that work, but they're also direct participants in that work. We host regular conversations with lawmakers and candidates to make sure that they have opportunities to speak with our members and the participants in the marketplace there. Also, a huge benefit is the regulatory and compliance work that we do. As new rules come down, we help interpret those, we help operationalize those. And then the third piece is being a part of that, public education and paid marketing effort to help communicate to the broader public that we're here and we're open for business.
Awesome.
That's a huge benefit of membership. And for any of your listeners that are interested in membership, they can reach out to us on our website, which is azdispensaries.org. We're also on Instagram at Arizona.dispensaries, and also all over LinkedIn. So look us up on LinkedIn as well.
Definitely. And we're going to be, before I let you go, what is your advice to folks that are just coming into this space? They are new to cannabis or just new to the business of cannabis. What is your advice?
Learn. There's a lot of resources out there, so learn before you do. That I had a family member who was in kind of that contracting space, the construction and building space, and didn't matter what we were talking about. He always said, "Measure twice, cut once." And I think that that's very applicable in cannabis. There's a lot of resources that are out there, whether it's your website, websites like ours, websites like Leafly or Weed Maps or the Minority Cannabis Business Association. There's all sorts of really great resources out there. Do some due diligence before you just go out there and say, I'm going to be in cannabis. It's a very difficult industry to be a part of, but you'll find a lot of folks willing to chat and talk to you and help you learn about what needs to kind of be your foundation as you enter the space.
Awesome. And finally, I'm going to let you tell our listener again, where can we find you? I know you mentioned it, and we're going to put all this information in our show notes when we release this episode. So Simon, talk to me. Where can we find you?
Online at azdispensaries.org, and on Instagram at Arizona.dispensaries, and also on LinkedIn. If you just search Arizona Dispensaries Association, we'll pop right up.
Awesome, awesome. We can fit Samuel. He's doing so much great stuff. We can fit him in one episode. So we're definitely gonna be bringing him. But thank you so much, Samuel, for joining me today. And folks, like I said, you are a business out there. We're still looking for sponsor for this show. If you want to be part of what we are doing, slide in DM WCI Health 19 or WCI Health-health.com. And also my book, A Pharmacist's Guide to Cannabis. This will help you if you are a dispensary. Samuel, your members need to get this book and put it in their dispensary for real, because it's gonna save folks a lot of time. The bartender will not need to be explaining nothing anymore. It's gonna fasten everything. They come in, they need a cultivar, they need specific topping. They can look in here and see what they need and just go for it. Saves you a lot of money, saves you a headache, helps your bartender. So grab your copy. We can do a deal for you as well. Folks, that's our show for today. Until next time, remember, healthy costs well. Bye, guys. See you later.